You're listening to the Backyard TARDIS Random Thoughts Podcast, part of the Red 5 Network.
Hey, it's Nicholas, and with the Backyard TARDIS, part of the Red 5 Network, and continuing on our full coverage of doing our top 10s and bottom 5s of all the seasons of Quantum Leap. We are now on Season 3, and what an excellent season this is. And so we're going to be covering Season 3 Top 10. As a reminder, this podcast is part of the Red 5 Network, so check biolink.red5 to find out more podcasts that you'll enjoy. But also, this particular series of videos is brought to you by Quantum Leap Revisited, that I'm doing with Price of Reason. He's invited me graciously these last couple of years onto his channel, along with Ro, who you may know, Script Doctor, and Sean Crummell, as we've been going over and reviewing each episode of Quantum Leap. And so, let's get into Season 3 and go over my top 10 episodes. Okay, starting at number 10, we have A Little Miracle. I gave this one a B+. Sam is a personal valet of a Scrooge-like character who is going to tear down a mission for his new building. It's going to be his mark, his legacy, and a Salvation Army captain lady trying to stop him. And, Al's like, hey, we're going to Christmas carol him. And so they go through and they find out, well, he actually... He may be the Scrooge character, but he has some kindness. He's nice to his valet. He secretly did come from humble immigrant beginnings, but he's kind of reinvented himself, trying to distance himself from that. And because his neurons are so close to Sam's, he can see Al. And so that allows them to kind of play around and do some of this. Now, I am what's known as a Grinch. I am not somebody into the holidays. Some of that is my religious background. I am a very literal person with a Bible. I don't like all the kind of traditions and fluff that's been added on. I just stick with what's in the Bible. But on top of that, Christmas Carol, very well done story. You got to give it its props. It's been done to death. Everybody's done the Christmas Carol story. Every family sitcom. We've done it in Doctor Who. But this was well done. I was not expecting to like this. This was well done. There was a lot of good heart in this. And so it makes my top 10. And I would say, yeah, B+. A lot of people are going, are you crazy? This is at least an A. And I get where you're coming from. Like I said, for me, doing the Christmas Carol story and getting a B+ is really high praise. So glad to have it on the list. Number 9, also a B+, is the Great Spontini. Now, this is one where people are probably scratching their heads and going, really? This one? This one made your top 10? What can I say? It's just fun. It's just fun. Sam leaps into a traveling magician in a battle, a custody battle for his daughter. So the idea is he's had this life. His wife married him, liked that he was a dreamer and all that, but after a while that kind of got old. They had a kid, and she kind of had a midlife crisis. She took off, left her kid with him because she couldn't provide for her kid. She felt she needed to get out of that cycle, but she knew where she was going. She was going to be flat broke. So despite the fact that she's leaving him because he's not providing stability for the family, he left her daughter with her. Now she's got this lawyer boyfriend. She's got all this money, and he's like, oh, we can get your daughter. We can totally get custody. This one was personal for me. Okay? My uncle had a similar thing happen to him. His my grandfather's business was kind of, he was a classic cabinet maker, was going out. Now, my uncle, admittedly, like, he had so much responsibilities with the kids, these things, he was not putting in the day shifts that my grandfather was. But as my grandfather was getting older, pre-made cabinets were becoming just more the norm. They were struggling to make money. My aunt took up and left when their third kid was born, and she came back. And then when the fourth kid was born, she took up and left again. The kid's still breastfeeding, but she just had like a mental break. She went, and then she moved, and she got a job in Idaho, and said, "You're going to move here." And he said, "No, our family, our friends, I got to care for my parents, I got to this." And she says, "Okay." She ended up marrying someone there. And then years later, when these kids are in their teens and stuff, now she's fighting for their custody. She wasn't there for them when they were in diapers, when, all that. And her oldest daughter practically raised her youngest siblings, being the mom figure. And it's amazing how much the courts favor the mother. And so I really like this. They really show that the new boyfriend's kind of sleazy. The daughter wants to be with her dad. But there is a realisticness of, she's not going to regular school. She's traveling on the road. There's a lot of fundamentals she's not getting. And maybe it is better for, and so they go through all this. And then, of course, the whole magic act and the death trap and having to pick the locks. I'm a locksmith, so honestly, just the subject matter, both of the magician and of the locksmithing, was all stuff that appealed to me, and it had a lot of family heart. I know this is kind of not, one that probably stands out as amazing for everyone, but for me, it's making my number 9 slot. Number 8, Last Dance Before an Execution. I gave this an A-. So we're already into the A's. This is a good season. Sam leaps into the perpetrator, who is accused of murder along with his friend, who are now on death row. He's about to be electrocuted. Like, it starts out, he's in the chair, and then they get the call, staying it. And it's interesting. There's a lawyer on the prosecution side who knows that they've cut corners. And so she's trying to help him. Because I believe he's Puerto Rican or Cuban, but he's an immigrant, and she's similar, and she knows that this person wants to run for office, and he wants to show that he's tough on crime, especially from these immigrant groups, and so he wants the conviction. So he's been cutting corners to make this a slam dunk, and the whole thing is that, they've robbed this church and they murdered somebody, the priest on it. Sam is doing everything he can. We see that, like, the kids can see Al, and that they help out there in the church. There's all this, and finally, what does Sam prove?
Spoilers.
He proves he did it. He was the killer. That's a huge twist. So like that's crazy. That's, but here's the thing. When he does that, remember, 2 people were on death row. The other guy came and helped him commit the crime of stealing the $8 out of the box, but only Sam's character went back and murdered him because he was a witness to it. So it helps see that, like, well, yes, his character was going to get justice because his character would not confess. Both of them were going to go down for it. And so everything's made right, but lots of beautiful drama. Now, there is a little wonkiness in that this lawyer lady is able to somehow go under her boss's nose and visit him, and everybody in the prison doesn't somehow put this together and figure it out because she's risking her job. Yeah, but it's a great story. Number 6, Runaway, another A-. And these two were probably right on the same thing, but family road trip. Sam leaps into a 13-year-old boy And this one, they know the mother's going to go missing. And the mother's reading some, first generation feminist material. She's talking about how she's unhappy, how the kids are getting older. She's going to want to go back to college so she can go back to work. And her husband is not having it. He is shutting it down. In fact, he's being a little bit too that because he's feeling threatened. And along this family road trip, they run into kind of an old boyfriend of hers from back in the high school, college days. And it really boils down to is that the dad got her pregnant, and that threw off her college dreams. But this is kind of the guy she would have been with, she would have gone to college with, probably would have dated in college. And she's seeing him. Now he's with a wife who is also somebody who has a bit of success in her life, and they don't have kids, but they're happy and fulfilled in different ways. And instantly we see the dad jealous. Now there's a scene where they're broken on the side of the road. The dad goes and helps him. What I love about this is, one, I love the whole road trip family vacation. This takes me back to my childhood. But I love that the real issue is communication. And it teaches such a fine lesson, because neither of them were not in love with each other anymore. But it was a breakdown of communication. It was probably when she would bring stuff up out of the blue, out of the sudden, he was taking it as a threat, almost like, I'll leave you. I want to be in a position to leave you. And it was also making him feel less fulfilled. He goes to work all day with the knowledge his wife doesn't have to work. He's like, oh, I would love to be home with the family and all this, but I gotta go and I gotta work, and I take pride in the fact that I make enough money. My wife doesn't have to have a side job. She doesn't have to work. She can be home, and isn't that great and nice? And so when she's saying she's not happy with that, it says, are you not happy with the life, the house, the family, all of this stuff I provided for us? You're not happy with it? You're not satisfied with it? He's taking that as a personal slight against him. And so they do a good job of showing moments where he doesn't do the douchey thing. He doesn't do the thing, but then there's other times when he does. But we get to learn where it's coming from. And by the end of it, they have that communication. And as someone who's a minister who has had to do marriage counseling and that kind of stuff for once, just such a great episode. Such a great episode in that way. And the action there at the end when, they have, turns out, she wasn't murdered, she wasn't this or that, she didn't run away and leave the family, because Al had a big thing, because his mom ran away and left them, which kind of goes back to the last episode. So Al's like all upset at this lady. Turns out, no, she, once again, spoilers. But she fell off the side of a cliff, and they have to rescue him. Now, I dock this a few points because the dad sent the kid down, but as a dad, me and my wife have an understanding. If it meant the life of our child versus one of us, we choose the child. We save the child, not our spouse. So, I like the idea of risking the child's life. Little, but all in all, good episode, good lessons, and a lot of heart. Okay, that takes us to number 5. Let's see. For that I have A Hunting We Will Go, another A-. Sam leaps into a bounty hunter cuffed to a lady, and Sam realizes she might be innocent and agrees to take her to kind of out of state to turn her in where she'll get a fair trial. So she's basically saying, hey, my boss, he was corrupt, he's scamming everybody, and I took the money, yeah, but it's so it can get back to the right people that he's scamming, but he's bought the court system, he's bought the sheriff, so if you turn me in here, nothing will happen. Take me there. So he agrees to do that, but she's constantly making life difficult for him. She's trying to escape. They have this angry bickering that is just wonderful, and it's one of those things when you have characters bicker like that, you're like, okay, now kiss. That's how it works in movies. You expect the turn. The funness of their banter, and then also like them having to work together, but also the banter, really makes this one a fun one. Number 4, Black on White on Fire, A+. Sam leaps into a black man on the day of the Watt riots. He has to save his girlfriend, Susan, a young white woman who's the daughter of the local sheriff, or police officer, I can't remember which, who's going to die in the Watt riots. But he also has to convince her that they need to stay in Watts. So he and Susan are about to go to medical school, and she wants them to take that and to move to where they could be in a more affluent area, but on a more forgiving area, you could say. See, they're mixed race couple. In the area where he is, there's a lot of ties of the black community doesn't appreciate that he has a white wife. The white community doesn't appreciate she's going to have a black husband. But they could go somewhere else where that is more common, and it's not going to be an issue. But his family feels like that's a betrayal. Like, we paid for you to go to college so that you could be a doctor in our community, so that we could have a quality doctor here. And you're going to go take your talents and go live the fancy life in the big city. Be all kosher with the white folk, Even her dad, he's a police officer. He knows, really, he's seen firsthand this racial divide, and really the difficulties his daughter will have to endure married to a black man that she doesn't have to. As a white woman, if she marries a white man, she'll... Sorry about that. I've been fighting a cold and had to take care of that scratch in my voice. But anyways, her dad, Now, her dad is played by Mark Alimo? Anyways, he's Gul Dukat in DS9. So, great acting there. The whole thing goes with his brother wants to make a statement. The friend dies, and he's like, you know what? It's all senseless. We do all these riots, we do all this, but it was just black people that died. Nobody's going to care. It'll be over tomorrow. But if a white woman dies, so he kidnaps his brother's girlfriend. And Sam has to convince the officer, let him go in. Let him go in, defuse the situation, do all that. Unfortunately, she convinces the brother to let her go. But just as that happens...
Spoilers.
The officers get the shot, they shoot him. And Sam, gets there in time. It's crying, it's emotional. And that's when she realizes they need to go back. They need to be there. Now, with some of these ones previously that have dealt with this subject, I've given S. This is, Color of Truth, like I said, that is my number 1 of season 1. So why is this only number 4? Why is this an A+ and not an S? Well, it's how you feel when it's done. Instead of ending with somebody being saved, lessons being learned, yes, it's a nasty situation, but lessons were learned in a way that the world seems a little more positive. yes, and there's some lessons were learned, but at great cost. And it's one of those things where, like, you turn off and you're like, you don't play the next episode. You're kind of like, I gotta let that sit with me for a little bit. I'm gonna go do the dishes, fold some laundry, and just kind of, think about that. Maybe put on some music, music without vocals, like some piano or guitar music or something, or and just kind of be in a somber mood for a little bit. Maybe a little jazz. It's very good. It's very impactful. Not an episode I'd rewatch very often. You have to be in the mood to watch this episode because it is going to leave you feeling. So that's a testament to how good it is, but it also holds it back from being at the top tier in that it's not the episode that you're like, oh, I want to talk about this. I want to rewatch this. So there. My number 3, The Leap Home Part 2. This is an S. So this one has some interesting things. Sam leaps into Nam, saves his brother. He crosses his personal moral code. He sleeps with a woman in his efforts to get info. And in saving his brother, he misses a chance to save Al, who is now a POW. And also, as a direct result, the camera lady in this episode, who she's a real she dies. And she just, this is kind of one of those things where it's a very impactful episode. It's very interesting. But the fact that Sam, he's there being a soldier, shooting a gun, doing all that, and he's breaking his moral code, sleeping with a woman, all to save his brother. But the real impactfulness is actually the lengths that Al goes to. Because Al knows that he could be saved. What he, in another episode, described as hell, this experience. But his care for Sam allows him to look past that. Now, it's real interesting to have this camera woman. She's kind of into there, and she's real talking everything up. And sorry about that. But she's talking everybody up, kind of, chatting with all the soldiers. Oh, hey, if all you're looking at is my lens, then we're in big trouble. She says a comment that, I trade my soul for Pulitzer. Right before she dies, she takes a shot of Al. A photo that gets her that Pulitzer. She wins awards for it. It's famous. And then she is able, as she's dying, to see Al the hologram. She somehow now knows the importance of the picture she just sent, because she's seeing him like he's almost an angel greeting her at death. There's a lot of powerful stuff in this. And it really shows the bond that Sam has for his brother and love there. But he's crossing lines. And, we all have a moral code. And we say there's things we won't do. But you never know until you reach that area. And in some ways, I can appreciate Sam's love for his brother. But in other ways, I'm a little disappointed that Sam broke his moral code. But that's why this is number 3. And my number 2 is The Leap Home Part 1. This is also an S. Sam leaps into his kid self. When this show first came on, I was 4 years old. By this time, I'm 6, maybe 7, depending on when the air dates are. This is an episode I vividly remember. this is, the same attraction to Back to the Future, the idea of going back in time, especially going back in time to when you were a kid. I went through a period where I made a lot of bad decisions. I made some bad decisions, and then my family moved, and I never got to make those right. And then after we moved, I made a lot more. I went through kind of an angry period about the move and stuff like that, and I made a whole lot more bad decisions. And there's a period of my life that I really wish I could go back and make changes. And there was a long period of my life where I was overly focused on that, because that is not the solution. And so one of the things I love about this is Sam is actively trying to make changes in his family. He's trying to get his dad to eat healthier so he doesn't die of a heart attack. He's trying to convince his brother not to go to Nam. He's trying to convince his little sister not to marry an abusive alcoholic. There's all these things that he's trying to convince him to do, and it's actually making his family upset. It's just so many things. And then finally he convinces his brother, I'll make, if we win this ball game, you promise me you won't enlist. And he goes through there. He makes the winning shot. That's what he needs to do to actually leap. That's what his mission was here to do. And that moment when he's asking Al if he was successful, and Al is just kind of looking at him, and he's waiting for him to leap because he doesn't want to tell him that it wasn't. And of course, and then we see he leaps into Nam, the other episode. He has another chance to save his brother, but he didn't save his dad. He didn't prevent his sister from having these things happen. And so it helps, as cool as that idea is of going back into your childhood life to try to make things better. It also shows that sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need to have the bad things happen in life so that you have the wisdom you have now, and you can't shortcut around it. You can't skip out all the bad things and still be the person you are. And I think that's a really great message. I really like that. And I know I was talking with Tex Rogers on my last season about these episodes, and he mentioned he was really disappointed in Sam in this one, specifically because he'd gone after Al about all these rules about your personal timeline and this and that, and he immediately threw it out the window here. But once again, that's all well and good to say until it's you in the hot seat. And I can't imagine any of us getting the chance to be in our kid self wouldn't try to make changes. So I really enjoy this episode. Now, my number one, let's drop some pretense. Here's another spoiler.
Spoilers.
But this is going to be the number one of the whole show. Okay? This is going to be the one, and that is Future Boy. This is S+, SS, whatever, highest one you can be. My favorite episode. So much in this episode reminds me of the behind the scenes of the first Doctor of Doctor Who, Hartnell. The whole, him being like, you have to say it right because it means something to the kids is a very Hartnell thing, but him kind of being a little bit of a crotchety man, kind of out of it, kind of losing his mind, and that being hard for them to work with him, and they're trying to push him out of the show. All of that reminiscent of Hartnell. The sets look like Lost in Space, a little Buck Rogers, so many other things, And then Captain Galaxy answers Sam's childhood letter, shows the hand link, and he basically, in the answer, he helps describe to Sam what eventually sparks Quantum Leap. Now, he has dementia and believes he can time travel. He's made mistakes. One of the things that so many of these actors that are in these sci-fi things, their families hate sci-fi. So many of the Star Trek actors say, like, Star Trek is a dirty word in our household. Like, they hate it. They hate it. Why? Because it took them away from their kids during their childhood. And so he has this desire. Once again, we're dealing with the subject matter of wanting to go back, fix your mistakes. He wants a time machine so he can go back and be with his kids. Because at the end of the day, he has all this career, all this stuff, but he'd give it all up if he could just be back with his kids. You know, have that time there with his daughter. Just, he found what was really important. And instead of facing it now, having that time, that relationship with her, he's living in this fantasy world of going back in time. But yet, he's actually kind of cracking the code. And there's a moment there where it looks like he's about to leap. And we all get excited and this and that. And indirectly, Sam calls it to mind. This is actually what caused him to come up with his theory. So in fact, he is the originator. He's the Leonardo da Vinci that scribbled out the idea for a flying machine that later the Wright brothers actually brought to fruition. That's his relationship with Sam and the quantum leap thing. That that paradox there is just so beautiful. This is a love letter to sci-fi overall. There's also a very touching moment when a kid asks him to go back and save his dead dog. And he tells the kid that he went and he visited the dog in heaven, and he's having fun and all this, you know. He didn't go, well, we can't go back and cross timelines, blah, 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 blah. He cared. He sat there. He talked to the kid. He helped the kid through it. It was such a touching moment. So many things in this episode. Just, I could go on and on. The sets. I love that when he's there and he's like trying to figure out, like, oh, I need to do this or this. And his partner's like, oh, don't you know you do this? And that's another thing that I loved is like when Sam leapt in and he doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing, they don't do cut. When TV was done that way, like, film was too expensive. They didn't do all these takes that they do now. So when he's like messing up, they just go with it. And they even have another gag, like when he steps out, he twists his ankle, which is carried over into another episode because Scott had actually injured himself, so they actually wrote that into the script. And so much of this is just pure gold. It is the essential nerdiness, like the whole loop causality situation in this of him inventing time travel and Sam's back there to save him so that he can go on and tell that message to Sam and Sam can invent time travel. And it's just, this is why we watch these kind of shows. And like I said, it is a love letter to sci-fi, and that's why it is my number one episode. With that, let me know what you thought. What were your top 10 episodes of Season 3 of Classic Quantum Leap? Click the link in the below if you want to hear more. We have a full panel ranking all the episodes of the entire season. That will be in the comments or in the description below. Check out, Price or Reason Live. We've rewatched the whole show. And as always, part of the Red 5 Network, biolink.red5.com. check that out. And, there's a podcast there for you to love, talking all things nerdy. And with that, I will catch you in the next video.
Greetings, listener. Just a reminder that the podcast you just heard is a proud member of the Red 5 Network family. Red 5 Network offers you a great variety of shows you'll be sure to love. So the next time you're itching for quality content, make sure you head over to Red 5 Network. You'll find this podcast along with a whole lot more. All wings report in. It's the Red 5 Network.